Hello and welcome to another episode. I'm so glad that we get to sit down and talk about protein. We're going to be covering why essential amino acids are so key for fat loss without muscle loss. We want to improve our physical training outcomes and how essential amino acids align with this, and how we can maintain muscle and functional fitness as we age, and why it's so important for our health. Protein. We're talking about protein, and the most simplest form of protein is going to be amino acids. Now, we've had our guest Angelo on the show a couple of times. Episode 446 was back in November 2023, and then episode 477, which was episode in June 2024. So it's been a hot minute since we've had Angelo on the show, and there's a lot new in the essential amino space, and I wanted to have him come on to talk about what we should be looking for in amino acids, why amino acids are the key to longevity, and how we can structure our diet and lifestyle around thinking about the amino acids that we're consuming, the protein powder that we're choosing, the profile of the specific protein powder, so we can just make educated choices around how to support our hormones, enzymes, hair, nails, skin, bones with protein, and why amino acids play such a critical role. So if you decide by the end of this episode, you're like, dang, I want to try this for myself, you can go to getkion.com/keto for 20% off my favorite essential amino acid supplement. We go far beyond supplementation in this episode. So if you're like, Leanne, I do not need one more supplement in my life, don't worry about it. Listen, learn, apply. We talk about whole food proteins, the benefits of amino acids, muscle protein synthesis, why it matters, why protein is such a key contributor to health and aging, and how as we age, we actually need more of the amino acids because they're less effective in the body and we need more potency. So whether you're looking for a supplement to get you there, or you're looking to get encouragement to focus on protein as a macro in your diet, or even how to figure out protein powders or if they're best for you, or to be encouraged with the movements that you're already taking by eating more protein, moving your body, I think you're going to love it. So let's cut over to our time with Angelo. Hey, my name is Leanne, and I'm fascinated with helping women navigate how to eat, move, and care for their bodies. This has taken me on a journey from vegan, keto, high protein to everything in between. I'm a small town holistic nutritionist turned 3-time international bestselling author turned functional medicine practitioner, offering telemedicine services around the globe to women looking to better their health and stop second guessing themselves. I'm here to teach you how to wade through the wellness noise to get to the good stuff that'll help you achieve your goals. Whether you're seeking relief from chronic ailments, striving for peak performance, or simply eager to live a more vibrant life, this podcast is your go-to resource for actionable advice and inspiration. Together, we'll uncover the interconnectedness of nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, and mindset, empowering you to make informed choices that support your unique health journey. Think of it as quality time with your bestie mixed with a little med school so you're empowered at your next doctor visit. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn about your body and how to care for it healthfully. Join me as we embrace vitality, reclaim our innate potential, and discover what it truly means to pursue healthfulness. Hey, Angelo, how's it going?
Good, Leanne. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you were on in November of 2023, June of 2024, and now 2025. We are going to be talking about, is it your favorite topic? Protein, essential amino acids. Is this like your favorite thing to talk about, or do you have a ultimate favorite beyond this?
A favorite, I don't know if I would say it's like my favorite thing of all things to talk about, but in terms of health and nutrition, it's the thing that I'm the most, familiar with, well read on, and feel like I can have really substantive conversation and actually like help enlighten people's lives, versus there might be other things I like to talk about, but I don't know if I actually know enough about them to.
Exactly. I feel you on that one. Okay. So why Why protein? Like, I guess let's step back a sec. When it comes to this topic that you enjoy speaking about and educating people on, where do you think the number one mistake that people make, or the conversations you hear where you're like, do I say something? Do I not? Like, what's the thing that you think that people have confused when it comes to amino acids and protein that really grinds your gears?
Two things come up. One is I don't know that it's like grinds my gears, but I just think it's really overlooked. And that is that over the last 20 years, the research community, so like the academic community that actually studies this stuff, has come up with like pretty big insights that are just not talked about that much definitely not in popular media, but even in like podcasts and health influencers and like that kind of space. So people just don't know what the role of the essential amino acids is in protein. They think it's basically just the part that your body can't synthesize, which is true. Like that is accurate, that the definition of an essential nutrient means that you have to eat it through your diet because your body can't make it, which is, I think, kind of crazy notion in the first place. Your body can actually make some things. It can convert some chemical components into others. So it can take essential amino acids and turn them into the non-essential amino acids. But more importantly than that, like the really big idea that people don't get or see is that essential amino acids are the active component of the protein. They actually have this chemical messenger role where they tell your body that it's okay to break down existing proteins and rebuild new ones. So when you are eating protein, really the big idea is like, can you, especially as you age, or if you're trying to lose weight, or we can go through all the different contexts of like why people are really thinking about trying to eat more protein. Because it's typically because you have some goal in mind. The reason why you're trying to do that is because you want something that's very dense in essential amino acids, that's highly digestible, that can get in your blood quickly so that you can promote this protein turnover. Like that's the heart of what makes the protein work.
And so would every protein be created equally? Like I would say over the last year, there are a lot of influencers and you go on social media and it's like high protein, high protein, high protein. And they're all kind of eating different proteins, but it's all high protein. Is a protein or does it matter?
This is maybe like, I said there were two things, and maybe this is like an interesting connection to the second thing. The second thing is like, I like getting into the nuance of this conversation and actually helping people make the right decisions around this. But there's a lot of like blah, 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 and arguing over potentially things that like don't matter. And like the big picture thing is like, do you move every day? Do you eat whole food proteins? Do you eat fruits and vegetables? Like, do you make like generally healthy decisions? And so I would just start by saying is, if you're prioritizing protein via whole food nutrition, you're doing something awesome. So like there is nuance. I'm going to get into it right now, but like it's awesome that you're even just trying to do it and eat it and like make those decisions and pursue those behaviors every day. Like that alone is good enough. Like that's awesome. That's great. So now next level though, critique is, do the different proteins matter? Like, yeah, they do. There's a real difference between them. So I think if you're looking at whole food protein sources, the first thing you want to be looking at is how digestible is that protein source. And it is simply the case that we as animals can digest animal proteins more efficiently and effectively than we can digest plant proteins, meaning we can break down the proteins and the amino acids that are making up those proteins, we can get them released and utilize them better if it's coming from an animal protein source. So that's one thing. That doesn't mean that, again, if you want to only eat plant proteins, that's bad or like you're not good enough and you have to eat animal proteins. You don't. You could just eat plant proteins. But know that like the animal proteins are much more available to us. The amino acids are much more effective. Then I think the second really important thing to think about is like, well, what's like the profile of those proteins? And maybe one way of thinking about this too is I like to use like this analogy of a house. I can't remember if we talked about it last time I was on the show, but basically like imagine our bodies are like a house. And if you want to run your house, you need energy. And that's what carbohydrates and fat are primarily. Like fats also are used to build cells, but like primarily like you eat carbohydrates and fat as energy. So it's like to run the dishwasher, to run the lights, to watch TV, to do whatever. Whereas protein, its primary role is not to be used as energy. It's more like building blocks or bricks that make up your house. It's like actually all the materials in our house. So like our bone, half of our bone mass is made up of proteins, our muscles, our skin, our hair, our nails, hormones, enzymes, all of these are made up of proteins. And so they're made up of all these little bricks, right? That said, just like in buildings, not all bricks are the same. There's red bricks and brown bricks and black and white, and some have like finer grains of sand or more or less. So similarly, like a chicken protein is literally made up of a different combination of amino acids than a quinoa protein is, or a whey protein, or like all these different forms. They're all a little different. And so you also want to get a protein source that the amount of the amino acids is very dense in the essential amino acids. There's more of the essential than there are in others. So for example, like in most animal proteins, it's somewhere between 40 and 45% of the protein is these essential amino acids. In plant proteins, it's less. It could be like around 20%. So it's quite a bit less. And then the rest are these non-essential amino acids. Then the next point, and they're getting even more nuanced here, is like, well, which of the essential amino acids make up that protein? Is there more or less leucine, isoleucine, valine, lysine? And there are some proteins that are richer in certain amino acids that when we consume them and they get into our blood, they promote more of this protein synthesis and more of this protein turnover. So they're higher quality, basically, even animal proteins compared to each other. So for example, like a whey protein does have a better profile than like a beef protein. So if you're comparing like a whey protein powder to a beef protein powder, that doesn't mean that, again, the beef protein isn't good. Like if you like beef protein powder, take that. If you like eating steak, eat that. But the whey is, slightly better. So there is like this whole kind of continuum of like better and, better proteins than others. And I think the last major point I'd make is just the caloric intake. Because when you eat a protein, it's likely going to be accompanied by some amount of fat and or carbohydrates. And if you have to consume a lot of fat with that protein, bacon, or you have to consume a lot of carbohydrates with that protein, beans, rice, basically any plant-based protein, you're getting all these other calories in combination with that protein. So you just have to be cognizant of the fact it's like, well, if I'm getting all these other calories from that other food source, like I just need to be cognizant of like how much total caloric intake I'm getting in a day relative to how much protein I'm eating. So I think like the quick, simple guide is if you do focus on lean, lower fat animal proteins, you're going to get the most condensed essential amino acid profile, concentrated form of that with not a bunch of other stuff. And it doesn't mean those other things aren't good too, but like that's going to be the kind of best bang for its buck. So it's like a low-fat Greek yogurt is going to be very concentrated in essential amino acids from the dairy, from the casein and the whey protein, and it's not going to have as much carbohydrates or fat, et cetera. If you have, chicken breast, it's going to be much more concentrated in that way. If you have a leaner cut of beef than if you had a really fatty cut of beef, or if you had beans and rice, you have to eat like 8 times the amount of beans and rice that you could get just from eating like a leaner cut of beef to get the same amount of protein.
Yes, exactly. Bob's Red Mill just came out with have you seen this? A high protein oat. It's like a whole grain oat and it's 10 grams of protein per third cup. So that's 600 calories for 30 grams of protein. And I'm like, that's not, the math isn't mathing there.
I was recently, on Max Lugavere's podcast, and he actually gave this like interesting kind of example of, think about if something's got basically like 10 calories for every gram of protein. A gram of protein has about 4 calories. If it's like 10 calories or less, like that's generally like pretty good. It's like, but if it's, I don't know what the exact math on that was, but I'm sure it's like twice that amount or something of calories.
Yeah. I mean, 200 calories for 10 grams of protein.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's not good. Okay. So what you're saying is, we care about this because these amino acids or protein is made up of a bunch of amino acids. The profile matters, the difference between the essential and non-essential and the different amino acids. We care about this because it's going to help grow our bones, skin, hair, nails, enzymes in the body, hormones in the body. That profile matters. And you talked a little bit about comparing like whey protein to a beef isolate protein or something like that. When we're thinking about whole food protein versus protein powder versus essential amino acids or BCAAs or creatine, how do we understand that in the context of this conversation when we're talking about the profile of amino acids and how it matters? How are we supposed to figure out all the different options when it comes from the whole food to the protein powder to the essential amino acid and creatine, how that all plays together.
Let's break it down. I'm going to start by taking two of them out of the conversation.
Okay.
So creatine, I'm going to take out of the conversation and say, let's talk about it a little bit later, because it is not involved in muscle protein synthesis the way that essential amino acids and protein are. It plays a very different role, and why creatine is good for muscle is it's for a very different reason. So we'll talk about that separately. It can't replace protein or essential amino acids. It's like an entirely different mechanism of action. BCAAs, we can come back to it, but I'll just take out and say they don't work. So this is like not my opinion. This is like science, and I'm not saying science is always a finished thing. Science is constantly evolving, but basically research started on amino acids, branched chain amino acids, in great detail for nutrition and for the kind of context that we're talking about this within like 40, 50 years ago. And in the last 20 years, it's basically been confirmed by the broad scientific community that branched chain amino acids, 3 of the essential amino acids, if taken on their own, do not work. They are not anabolic. And if anything, they're potentially catabolic because they actually tell your body to promote this protein synthesis, but then you don't have enough of all the other amino acids in your blood to do anything. So just don't take branched chain amino acids on their own. So that'd be like my quick guidance. We can get into it more if you want to, you feel like that's a big question for your audience. So let's just get into like whole food protein, protein powders, essential amino acids. Like, are they all the same thing? Do they do something different? How does it work? So here, we're going to really dig into this idea of what is it in the protein that stimulates the protein synthesis? It is essential amino acids being digested quickly and having a peak concentration in the blood. And this is through multiple studies. If you really want to nerd out, check out the International Society of Sports Nutrition position paper on this, I think from 2023. But they really break it down and they have you have all the different references. But the simplest way, again, of getting into this is like you're trying to get the essential amino acids out of the food source or the supplement source and get it into your blood and have the highest amount of it all at once. And when that happens, basically the other proteins in your body read that as like, oh, there's all this essential amino acid available to us in the blood. That means we can break ourselves down and be rebuilt in the simplest of terms, right? And when it's not there, it doesn't happen. That communication doesn't happen. So very interestingly, 30 grams of beef protein, which is about what you get from like a 5-ounce steak, will stimulate more protein synthesis than over twice that amount, 70 grams of beef protein, which is like a 12-ounce steak approximately, if you eat that 12-ounce steak as part of a mixed meal. So you eat a smaller amount of beef on its own, 30 grams, or you eat 30 grams of protein, or you get 70 grams of beef protein, but it's part of like broccoli and potatoes and other things. It actually stimulates more eating less beef on its own in young adults. Why is that? It's because that beef protein is able to be digested more quickly and easily, and the essential amino acids reach the blood and hit a peak concentration more quickly. And when that happens, it communicates to the body, hey, it's okay to basically have this protein turnover. And I think it's just something I'll highlight here too, is I think in lots of cases in kind of traditional exercise science, people think, oh, I have to lift weights. And that's what's going to like kind of promote the muscle protein breakdown and then new protein synthesis. And then I use protein that I eat in my diet to like fuel it. Like, no, truly, food on its own, and especially supplements, can actually stimulate protein synthesis on their own. So just comparing these food sources, the less beef actually like does more than the total beef, right? So I think when you're comparing different food sources, I wouldn't try to like obsess over it too much, but basically animal proteins like eggs, dairy, beef, chicken, fish, any of these food sources, they're all approximately going to stimulate a similar amount of protein synthesis. The only plant protein that comes close to it is tofu, is soy. Everything after that is significantly less. Surprisingly, like the soy tofu is actually pretty good. It actually stimulates a significant amount. So I think it probably gets too much hate and there's kind of a lot of fear around like phytoestrogens, et cetera, but it's actually surprisingly anabolic protein source. So it's kind of sad in some ways. I feel like soy protein powder has been like beaten up by the plant protein world by like hemp and rice and all these other ones, which are not as good. Like not even close as good. Yeah. So yeah. And so then the next question is, okay, well, what about, and then plant proteins are all going to be less than that significantly. And I think like, does that matter? How does that matter? I think it just means you need to be that much more thoughtful about how much protein you eat, when you eat it, and like how how important this is to you. And the other thing I'd say is all this is kind of, we're talking about young adults. When I start to get into like aging adults, which basically starts at 30, but really if you're 40 or over, you're in this group, it becomes a much different story. But we'll get to that in a second. So now if I just compare protein powder, and I'm going to say whey protein powder because it is the superior protein powder that just has proven to show the greatest results for stimulating protein synthesis. It's better than, the others. It stimulates about 3 times the amount as the beef. Whole food beef, gram for gram. Now, the reason for that is similar to why the beef eaten on its own stimulates more than the beef as part of a mixed meal. That whey protein has been stripped of other carbohydrates and fats. It's a more isolated form. It's not a whole food anymore. Protein powders are not whole food. They're not just like naturally occurring whole foods. They haven't necessarily been chemically processed. Like whey protein is all through cold filtration. I think it's a great, quote, processed food, right? That's actually good for you. But it's been isolated. And what happens is that when you consume that whey protein, it again is able to be digested much faster than even the beef. There is a slightly better essential amino acid profile, and it just gets into the blood more quickly. So it is like 3 times as potent as the beef is. So a whey protein powder, like if you're just trying to eat a little bit more like you eat 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day, whatever you're into, and then you're trying to find like a couple more periods throughout the day where you add a snack or some more protein focused supplements. Like a whey protein powder is going to be more effective specifically for this protein synthesis than trying to eat some more beef jerky or some other kind of like protein snack.
Is the whey protein effective because of its leucine content, like because of the specific amino acid, profile of it, or what makes it more effective than the other options?
Other protein powder options?
Yeah, like pea protein or egg white or whatever you're...
It's digestibility, and it is also the profile of so there's a little nuance of the branched chain amino acids in it, which include leucine and isoleucine, right? But it's before when I was kind of saying don't take branched chain amino acids on their own, it's like only taking those 3 on their own, whereas in whey protein, there is a greater amount of them. So its profile is better than like a pea protein or a hemp protein, et cetera. And it's also more digestible.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So now then what about, if that works and whey protein powder is good and it has this impact, like what about essential amino acids? Why do they even exist? So with a whey protein powder, again, it's almost all protein. There's and especially if you get a whey protein isolate, it'll be like 20 grams of protein and like maybe 23 grams of total material, meaning, it's like there's some minerals and a tiny, tiny bit of carbs and fat. Like it's almost all entirely the protein. Still, that protein is only 45% essential amino acids. And the essential amino acids they're the only active component in the protein. You do not need any of the other 55% of the protein, of that whey protein, to actually stimulate and fulfill the protein synthesis. You really just need the essential. So when you go to an essential amino acid supplement, which is 100% the essential amino acids, whey protein only 45%, essential amino acid supplement 100%. And then furthermore, you can tweak the formula a bit more. You can actually increase the amount of leucine. Like in whey protein, it's about 27%. In an ideally formulated supplement, you can make it 40%, and you can tweak the isoleucine, the valine. That type of leucine-enriched and branched chain amino acid-enriched essential amino acid supplement, it's all essential amino acids. It's got the more ideal formula. It requires virtually no digestion. It hits the blood so quickly that it's like 3 times as powerful as the whey protein for a young adult, if you're like 30 or younger. So that's how it works. Basically, it's like for, drastically less calories for a lot less total, you have like a light fruity beverage, or you can have these capsules, et cetera. You're getting way more impact than you'd get from a lot more whey powder or even more like whole food beef that you'd be trying to eat. I think now where it becomes very, very persuasive and interesting about like why, where, and how do supplements fit is that as we age, our ability to digest protein diminishes and our sensitivity to the essential amino acids goes down. Basically, it's like when you're 50 and you eat some chicken breast, you're not quite as good at digesting the chicken breast. But then also when the essential amino acids get in your blood, your body doesn't read it as, awesome, I'm going to use these to go rebuild my skin and go rebuild these liver proteins and build new muscle. Like it's thinking more in a kind of a lazier survival mode, right? So it simply doesn't react to them in the same way. Essential amino acids, though, when formulated in such a way where you get like the 40% leucine and the higher isoleucine and valine. It, for an older adult, is much greater. So for a 60-year-old, it's about 6 times the impact as whey protein. So it's about double. When you go from like 30 to 60, it's twice the impact. So kind of a simple rule. I think this is simple. Tell me if it's if this is intuitive as I think. Yeah. Like whatever decade you're in, take that first digit. So if you're 30, it's like 3. Essential amino acids are going to be about 3 times as effective as whey protein powder. If you're 40, about 4 times. If you're 50, 5 times the impact of whey, 60, 6 times the impact.
So stupid question. Why would we use whey protein then?
Well, I think this goes back to the second thing that I think sometimes I like in watching protein marketing and essential amino acid marketing. It's like, why does it have to be that like only one thing's good and other things bad? Like what I would say is like, if you really like whey protein, you like making a smoothie in the morning and like you just love like the thickness and the richness of that, and you mix it with fruit, like whey protein powder is good for you. It's not a bad thing, right? If you like putting it into like baking things, if you just like, I don't know, there's like a chocolate whey protein powder you really like. I mean, that's my experience. Like my company, we have essential amino acids. We also have a whey protein. I take a lot more essential amino acids than I do whey protein, but sometimes like I would like a chocolate shake type of thing, you know, it's still good for me. It's not as efficient. It's not as effective as the essential amino acids, but that doesn't mean that it's like bad. But this is the thing I'd say. So for my dad or for my mom, who are in their 70s, like I don't try to tell them to consume whey protein powder. Their appetite's already kind of much lower. They have a hard time getting enough protein in no matter what. I'm like, just take as much essential amino acids as you can possibly take in a day. Don't even waste your time on the whey protein powder. So I think that's the also nuance. Like I'm 40, maybe as I get older, like I may move more and more away from the whey and just focus purely on the essential amino acids. If I'm 20 and I'm like an athlete and I'm just trying to get in tons of calories, like I might do both. You know, I know the essential amino acids, it's going to be easier for me to take a bunch of them before I work out or take them first thing in the morning. But like if I'm hungry after a workout, maybe I take both. Like, so I think rather than it being that one is good and one is bad, they're just different. And the essential amino acids are much better. So I think if you're like, the older you are, the less sense whey makes, the more sense essential amino acids make. If you're really trying to lose weight and lose fat, especially, essential amino acids are going to be much more effective than the whey protein from like a total, you know, calorie intake thing, but also like you have to get so much more essential amino acids in your diet per day. You have to have 300% the amount of essential amino acids per serving to maintain a net protein balance if you're dieting at a 30% caloric deficit. That's like a lot to unpack. But basically, if your daily consumption is like 2,000 calories to just stay your current weight, and you cut 600 calories a day so you can like lose a pound a week, you have to consume 3 times the amount of essential amino acids in a serving. It's like 3 times the amount of protein in order to not lose muscle during that weight reduction. So like in that case, that's a lot of whey protein. Like that'd be gross, you know? Like it's,
so the savvy person would like have breakfast and a drink with essential amino acids in it, and then lunch with some essential amino acids, and dinner and maybe a snack with, so you're folding in. I mean, that's what I do. Before my workout, I do a protein shake and I add the EA essential amino acids in the protein shake because I'm sensitive to whey, can't do it. So I use a beef protein before my workout and I add the essential amino acids. And then after my workout, I do an egg white protein and I add the essential amino acids.
That's an awesome strategy.
Oh,
that's
so
awesome
great.
Strategy. Yeah.
I love it. And then in my bottle right now, as we're chatting, it's the afternoon. I'm way too full. Like I had lunch 2 hours ago. I don't need more food in my stomach, but I do know that I need amino acids in my body. So then I drink that in the afternoon between my meals. And that's kind of how I get about 3, sometimes 4, because I have one before bed, usually, servings a day.
And so that's a great example of like, well, why not only do the essential versus mixing it with like these protein powders that you liked? You like the beef protein, you like the egg. So it's like, because you like them and they're also good for you, but you add the essential amino acids to it and it makes them even better.
Oh, so much better. When I never thought to do this until probably about 2 months ago. I was like, wait, why don't I add, because there's not enough amino acid, like the balance of beef protein is not great. Like the protein powder is not an awesome balance of amino acids. And same with the egg white protein. I think it's like 1.7 grams of leucine and it's not awesome. So why not just add the aminos in there? And it was like a duh moment, light bulb, duh moment for me.
Yeah, and it's I don't know about a study specifically for adding it to beef protein and like an egg protein, but even for whey, which is this, I'm speaking highly of it as a protein powder on its own. When you add like essential amino acids to it to change the profile, to increase the leucine, the isoleucine, the valine, it improved the performance of it by like 50%. So the same thing is going to be true for like a beef protein or an egg protein, where it's like adding it to it actually makes the whole thing work better.
Yes. And that's the experience I've had for recovery, especially. And because it's like more easily digestible, I used to have an actual meal and then work out. And that was always just a challenge for me because I was full and moving my body. So even at that front, like if you're having a hard time making sure that you're fueled up right for your workout, but you know that you need amino acids in your body to do the things, I find that to be really helpful. Can we talk a little bit about, because you had talked previously about the calories, and if you're at maintenance for 2000 and you drop it down by 600 calories to lose about a pound a week, do we count amino acids, like an essential amino acid supplement, toward our protein goals? And if so, how do we do that? Because they're just aminos, and how does it count and how does that work?
That's a good question. So what I would say is that when we're talking about protein, they're typically, like in whole food, right? Protein's connected to other things. It's connected to like minerals and carbohydrates and fats and micronutrients, et cetera. And so what I would say is that, like, in general, you want to be eating whole food protein sources, like in your daily diet. Like, you don't want to be trying to replace all of your whole food with like supplements, protein powders or EAA powders or whatever. That said, at some point you can, when you're trying to hit like these higher limits. So what I would say, it's like, I would just make sure that like the RDA is basically 0.4 grams of protein per pound of body weight, which is quite low. And honestly, I think that the science reflects more that you really need a minimum of about 0.6. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you need like a minimum of 60 grams of protein. I wouldn't go below that in like whole foods, like unless you're in some kind of clinical situation. In that case, anyways, you need to be talking to your doctor, but like be eating eggs and meats and whole grains and whatever it is that you like, right, to get it in. Then though, when you're trying to hit these higher levels of protein intake and you're thinking about using something like a protein powder or an EAA supplement, you absolutely can. And this, though, I think is where the nuance starts to take over a little bit. And you kind of have to, I think you need to like pay attention to what your own body's telling you and what works for you. Because as I described earlier, like the whey protein powder is even like already like 3 times that of like just of like the beef protein. So you could consume less of that whey protein than you're eating of like extra chicken, right? You don't act like, rather than trying to get like the gram of protein per pound of body weight, you could probably have a little bit less than that if you're consuming supplements, because it's actually more potent and more powerful. And so in that case, it's like, how do you track that? How do you think about that? In general, what I would say is like, I would just count protein powder pretty much like whole food protein, even though I'm telling you it's better, right? Yeah. Not better, but more impactful. And the essential amino acids, I would though then count it at about those rates I described. So for example, if you're 40 years old, 5 grams of and I just want to name, like, we should get into this later, like the formula of this matters. This is not any essential amino acid supplement. This is like ones that follow the actual research and science. So a leucine enriched, branched chain amino acid enriched with lysine enrichment as well, like this kind of formula, it is going to have about 4 times the impact. So 5 grams of essential amino acids count as like 20 grams of protein, which is actually a lot, right? Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And if you're much older, if you're like 60, you can count it as like 30 grams of protein. What I would say though, again though, this is not just taking 2 scoops of this and be like, oh, I got my 60 grams of protein in for the day. Like, no, like eat real food, like have a healthy relationship with food, eat whole meals. And then when you're trying to hit these higher levels, use it in that kind of way. That said, it also is safe up to very high levels. Like that ISSN report showed, reviewing all the literature, that you could take up to 100 grams of supplemental EAAs per day long term. That would be like 20 servings of Kion aminos. Like that's a lot, So at the same time too, you could be eating a gram of protein per pound of body weight and supplementing a couple times throughout the day, and you're all good, So I think it's kind of dependent on like what your goals are too. Like if you're trying to be like really cut, if you're trying to be very athletic, very agile, if you're overweight and you're trying to lose fat, like what age you are, like you can kind of adapt it, I think, to like what makes most sense for you. But I think that guide of like It's 3 times as effective as protein if you're 30, 4 if you're 40, 5 if you're 50, 6 if you're 60. That's a good guide for trying to hit higher levels of daily protein intake.
Yes, absolutely. Well, before we get into more about essential amino acids, let's talk about the options on the market, because I've been getting a lot of questions about one specific brand, and I have a lot of thoughts on why I don't personally take it, but I'd love to kind of maybe even go through the label of this brand and kind of talk about, like last time you were on the show, we talked about how to find a good essential amino acid supplement. So we'll just get into it. Perfect Aminos is one that a lot of people ask me about, why I choose Kion over Perfect Aminos. And I'd love to just go through the label to kind of help people understand why it's not my personal favorite and wouldn't recommend it. Are you cool with that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I try to just go out and share the education, share the information with people, follow what the science says. And I'm not trying to go out and hate on other brands. And it probably isn't, it's good. And it's a good learning lesson for everyone, just in terms of what to look for and why something maybe works or doesn't work, and what follows the science and what doesn't. And let's see what we find. I'm down.
Okay.
Let's go.
So on their label, it says that it's a proprietary blend of Perfect Amino, essential amino acids, and NA proprietary blend. So in our conversation a couple of minutes ago, you were saying that we're looking for something with leucine and lysine in specific amounts. And would we need to know those specific amounts?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you started with the biggest red flag, I guess I would say. I would never advise someone to buy an amino acid supplement that's a proprietary blend. And this is not against that brand. I'm just saying, don't do it, because you don't know what's in it, and the proportions really matter. So, and I guess the bigger thing I would say is there's no reason to have a proprietary blend. That's marketing mumbo jumbo, BS. You don't need that in amino acid science. It's some financial marketing goobly gop. It's these studies that I'm reciting and talking about, these are performed for NASA, the NIH, the US military, et cetera. It's published data. It says what is in, they're saying what's in these formulas. And the basic overarching kind of idea is that you want the amino acids to be formulated to approximately how they exist in human skeletal muscle. So if I did a muscle biopsy of my muscle, it'd have a certain amount and percentage of each amino acid. And then you want to increase the leucine to 40% to overcome the anabolic resistance, increase the isoleucine and the valine to maintain their original proportions, and increase the lysine. And the lysine one is actually it's a slightly more nuanced point, but again, shown through a lot of literature, that basically the lysine is much slower to get into the muscle tissue. And so if you don't have what I just described, everything I'm talking about doesn't necessarily work. I don't care what you call it. You could call it amazing amino, the best amino ever. It's not going to do it, right? And there's just no reason to hide and to not tell someone what's in it. I also think too that there's a tradition in some amino acid companies that still use some form of the old MAP type formula, which was this research from the 90s, which again has just been very largely disproven. And it's all the research I'm citing today is all from much more up-to-date research over the last 20 years. So it's if there's any chance that that's what's in it, that's not good. You just don't know what's in it. So I would just don't. And there's plenty of brands, this is not even trying to say my brand, there's plenty of brands that tell you exactly what's in it. So stay away from proprietary blends for amino acids.
What else should we be looking at? Because for me, that's when I'm looking at options of essential amino acids. And before I was taking Kion, before I decided that Kion was the brand that I was going to go toward, I started using your product without you guys even knowing that I existed. And I just did the research, decided that it was going to be Kion, started taking it. That was the only criteria that I had, was to know what the ratios were. So I knew what I was taking. But are there other things that we should be looking at as we're standing at the store? We have 500 windows open, trying to determine what the best option, what other maybe red flags should we be looking for that kind of can guide our decisions?
So without trying to go through too much of the details right now, those proportions that I described that are based off the science, I would look for those. And if you need a quick, whether you buy a Kion or not, if you want a quick guide it's published on the label, just go look at those proportions and make sure it's generally the order of the amino acids, or at least in that order. like the one that has the most, like leucine's by far at the top, that you see that general order of them and like which one has the most and which one has the least of that specific amino acid. I think another really important thing is that you don't, and again, this is like just one of the tricks of like business, and like it's not only true for supplements, it's for all kinds of businesses, right? Like people are trying to figure out how to position themselves and how to be different. And people are so focused on trying to be different that they lose focus of what is actually good and has impact. And so it's like, just because this one has arginine or this one has blah, blah, blah extra ingredient, like everything we talked about today, you don't need any of that extra stuff. You literally just need the 9 essential amino acids in this order I've described them, and that's all you need. So if they're adding other things to try to be special or different and convince you that's important, it is just a business marketing tactic.
I've seen some with collagen, like some ad like collagen. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and it's like because they're trying to be different. It's like they're trying to act like, oh, well, that one doesn't have that, and they're trying to prove to some investor or someone else like, well, here's how we're different. And it's like, I think it's totally possible, and maybe this is more advice to like less to consumers and to like business people as well. It's like, just do something well. Just like choose a product category that you really care about and like make it really well, and just like follow what the science says and treat customers well and provide education, and like it will work out. You don't have to be, I experienced like raising kids too. Like you don't have to be special or different or better than like the other kids. Like you can just be you. You can just be like, do your best, and it will like work out. And so, I would just look for that in the supplement aisle. Like, is someone trying to be super different or special? And like, why? Like, there's no reason. So you don't need other things in it. I think if you had really different specific goals, like I really want to use amino acids specifically only as a pre-workout. And so could I find something else with a nitric oxide booster in it? Or I really want caffeine in it, or like then maybe, but otherwise, like you can also just, have a shot of espresso and, and take some aminos. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. So tasty.
Yeah, but you don't need anything else. So it's like, maybe just summarizing, like definitely no proprietary blend, stay away. You don't need any other special gobbledygook marketing reasons why you should buy their thing. And the proportions really matter. So look for kind of the right order of those amino acids. And then, I just don't think you need, it's kind of up to you, but this is one last thing. I do think that plant-based amino acids are a much cleaner option. So plant-based amino acids are fermented from plants. So it's a really cool process. It's like the Japanese basically came up with this. No duh, I guess, like came up with like soy sauce and other things as well. But like it's fermented from plants. If you don't get a plant-based one, then it can come from duck feathers and even human hair, which I just think is like kind of gross. Maybe it doesn't matter to you, but it is kind of gross. And they do tend to have like a stronger, like kind of weird amino acid profile. And amino acids already are like pretty strong, bitter, sour, like they're not the best tasting thing. So you just kind of have this, they're cheaper though. Like I think if you look for like any of the really big brand, like you try to find an amino acid like at your Costco or something like that, it's not going to be plant-based. It's definitely going to be coming from, I would bet if the price point is lower, like it's coming from duck feathers and human hair. And it goes through other types of chemical processing in order to extract those amino acids. And it's just like a grosser product. So plant-based is definitely ideal.
I didn't even know about the human hair bit. I need a moment to recover from that. I'm thankful I never did that. Okay, so you had mentioned something a little bit ago about taking essential amino acids to improve body composition even without exercise. How is that possible? Really?
Yeah, why? How? So, well, I'll give kind of the most obvious weight loss version first. So if I just like am not super active, maybe like walk around, but I'm not like exercising, and there's a certain amount of calories per day that I burn just living and doing my basic activities around the house, right? If I consume less calories than that per day, what's going to happen is that the fat stores on my body, which exist there for that reason, I have less food on a given day. I can actually start to live off those fat stores and I start to burn them. But what also happens is that I start to oxidize the amino acids in my muscle as well. And on top of that, more accurate comment is that I start to use the amino acids in my muscle as well. So as we described earlier, like you've got your heart your liver, your kidneys, your bones, all these things that are made up of proteins. If I don't eat protein or I eat less protein than I need, I still have to remake my liver proteins. I still have to make new heart tissue. So where do I get the raw amino acids to rebuild those proteins in my heart, in my liver, my kidneys, my muscle? So I actually break down muscle to supply amino acids for the rest of my body. On top of that, if I am consuming less calories than I need in a given day to maintain my current weight and thus to lose weight, I also start to use more of the protein that I eat in this less efficient way as energy. I start to convert more of that protein, those amino acids, into an energy source to just live off of because I need the energy. So I'm also getting even less benefit from them. So what happens is if you go into an aggressive caloric restriction like today, the first 10 pounds that you lose, it could be as high as like 4 pounds of that is actually muscle loss. 6 pounds fat, like 4 pounds muscle. Long term, it's lower. It's probably like 2.5 to 3 pounds muscle to like 7 pounds of fat. But that's actually a pretty high amount. 25 to 40% of your weight loss being muscle loss is like not ideal. And what I'll just say, it's like to lose the combination of the fat and the muscle, like, yes, you will look different, but your actual like body composition, like the percentage of body fat that you are to muscle could actually remain relatively consistent. And I think what most of us really want when we're thinking like, oh, I want to lose a few pounds, like, I wish I could lose like 5 pounds, right? I'm thinking I want to lose 5 pounds of fat. I want to lose 10 pounds of fat, right? And so this is where essential amino acids can come in. If you consume a much greater amount of essential amino acids, like I said earlier, you basically have this like much larger amount. You need 3 times the amount at like a 30% caloric deficit. You can maintain a net protein balance. So it could be that you go into a caloric deficit without any additional exercise, but you eat a little less food. You add the essential amino acids to your diet a couple times per day. You could lose 10 pounds of fat and lose no muscle without any additional exercise. So in this case, you haven't put on new muscle, but you've changed your body composition significantly because you've lost only fat, but you've maintained all of your muscle. And that will show up as much lower body fat percentage. It'll show up as a much more toned body, et cetera. And that is without any exercise at all. That's just you dieting and then using this supplement.
And your metabolic function is going to be much better than losing that amount of muscle, because that's going to affect so much if you lose that amount of muscle, like 4 pounds of muscle loss.
Yeah, because muscle, I mean, a few of the things it does, it's really important. The more like muscle is made up of these proteins, right? And these proteins have to be rebuilt. That is an energy intensive process. So having more muscle means you have a higher resting metabolic rate. You just burn two people that weigh the same amount, but one person has 5 pounds more muscle and the other one has 5 pounds more fat. The person with more muscle burns more calories every day, just maintaining their muscle at rest. And then also when you move and you do things, you burn more calories because you have more muscle. So yeah, it's like, it makes it that much easier to maintain lower body fat percentage the more muscle you have, because you burn more calories in everything that you do. On top of that, muscle absorbs like 80% of the glucose that you consume. Like it's what absorbs all these sugars, right? For the amount that you need, right? If you consume too much, then it gets, then you have this kind of negative feedback loop with the insulin response and with putting on more body fat, et cetera. But it's what's trying to absorb the glucose. So again, the more muscle you have, the more carbs you can potentially eat as well. And the more regulated blood sugar levels that you're going to have. So it's like, you really want to keep your muscle. And then you start getting into like longevity conversations and avoiding falls and injury, being able to maintain muscle mass at any time in the future where maybe you get injured or have a chronic illness, or you can't exercise, you're busy, you're stressed, et cetera. It's like muscle is this bank account that you really want to keep that overall is going to maintain your body composition.
Yes. Okay. I want to spend our last couple of minutes in creatine because we didn't get there and we bookmarked it, and people will be very upset if we don't get there. So how is it different than the essential amino acids? Because everyone's talking about creatine right now, and I think a lot of people are getting confused.
Creatine's awesome. It is also very highly studied. It's another one where it's like, if you really want to geek out, go to the International Society of Sports Nutrition. They have an awesome position paper on it. It's quite different. So people are generally familiar with like aerobic and anaerobic activity. These are actually like energy systems. So it's like how we convert the energy from like glucose, for example, into ATP in our body, whether it's with oxygen or without oxygen. Well, there's this other energy system called the phosphocreatine energy system. And what that does is when you are performing intense bursts of physical activity, think bench pressing, jumping, sprinting, any kind of resistance training, really, resistance training and sprinting, et cetera. But it could even be like getting up from a chair, potentially, when it's like a burst. You tap into the phosphocreatine energy system, and that utilizes phosphocreatine stores that are stored inside of your muscle, and it can basically convert them very quickly. So when you take creatine, we get creatine in our diet. If you are an omnivore, creatine is present in like red meat, fish, et cetera. It's not existent in plants. So I'd say for sure, any listeners, if you're purely plant-based or vegan, like you really definitely consider supplementing with creatine. But even in that case, even if I eat a lot of red meat, eat a lot of fish, if I take supplemental creatine, 3 to 5 grams per day, I can store even more creatine in my muscles, have even greater phosphocreatine stores. And so what happens is when I go to do pull-ups, maybe I used to be able to do 10 pull-ups. Now I can do 12 pull-ups. And what that does is if you can train your muscles harder, more, additional reps, longer, you're going to get healthier muscles, stronger muscles. And through that, you're going to build more muscle. So that's kind of the functional way that creatine works. At the most basic level for body composition for muscle, creatine gives you this raw energy store in your muscle that allows you to train harder and more. So interestingly, maybe compared to the amino acids, it does require exercise. Like for the creatine to actually provide its core benefit for your muscles, you need to exercise because it basically it allows your muscles to perform better.
And so there's creatine monohydrate, and it can come as CreaPure or the other stuff.
So there's a bunch of different, this whole creatine monohydrate thing, this is probably an example of, again, like there's all these different ways that you can make creatine and have it bound to different molecules or different forms. And like creatine monohydrate is the most studied, most legit, most effective form of creatine. So if you're going to get creatine, that's what you want to look for. And then if you want slightly more nuance, although I wouldn't say this is like crucial, this is like a choice that like I make and like my company makes. There's one manufacturer of creatine in Germany, and they have this form that's called CreaPure. And the molecules are much smaller, and it's the only one that's made in Germany. All the other sources come from China. And so it's really like the premium creatine monohydrate that you can get. I think if you were to get two side by side and mix them up in a glass of water, you'd quickly see which one was the CreaPure and why. And so, I think it's like it's just a slightly more premium product. That said, creatine is something that you can't just take on the days you work out. Creatine is something you must take every single day for it to provide this benefit. It's not like I take it and then it gives me this muscle boost today. I have to take it. Basically, if you start taking it today, it'll probably take a couple of weeks for it to actually saturate into the muscles enough. And so it's like this thing you have to take every single day. So if I'm going to take something every single day, I'm going to make a product, sell it to people, give it to my mom, my dad, and my kids. Like I want it to be like the premium, cleanest one from Germany and not something else. That's my decision around, but I don't think you must.
So I noticed now my husband calls me a walking lab. I can feel everything in my body very easily. I'm very in tune. And when I switched to CreaPure, I swear to you, I felt the difference in my ability to push harder in lifts. Like, for example, if I'm doing like shoulder press, I could feel that I was stronger on the CreaPure than the non-CreaPure. And people said I was crazy. I shared it online. They were like, you're nuts. But I'm like, I swear to you, like there's nothing in it for me. I'm just telling you, I noticed a difference. When it comes to, so my mom was visiting recently and she was saying she was dealing with a lot of brain fog. And I had these creatine gummies that I don't like. They're terrible tasting. And I said, well, just start taking these and see. And she started taking 5 grams daily. And she said that she noticed a difference pretty quickly. Can we talk about the brain function when it comes to creatine and the role that it can play?
Yeah, so this is definitely like the exciting frontier of creatine. And maybe it's more than frontier. There's a lot of studies here. I mean, there's hundreds of studies on the whole muscle function stuff I just described, and there's tens of studies on cognition and even mood. There's a more recent one specifically on mood. But the other place that these phosphocreatine stores occur are also in the brain, not only in the muscle, but also in the brain. And it appears that specifically for people dealing with stress, sleep deprivation, or advanced age, by supplementing with creatine, they get improved cognitive performance. Typically, it's higher doses though than just 5 grams. So like in seniors, it's been shown that it's more like 20 grams, but pretty significant improvements in processing speed and memory. So like literally they can recall things better and their processing speed for performing tasks gets improved. I think for the sleep studies, it's been more like 10 grams, so it's a little bit less. But I think it's all kind of based on stress-based context, or like not like what I would say is like if you're 30 and you're sleeping really well and you exercise and you eat pretty well, it's like I don't think creatine is going to be like this breakthrough nootropic for you. But if you're 60, it could. Like really, if you're 60, it's like I think it's going to become much more of a standard longevity-based supplement, because not only is it going to help people to build and maintain muscle and overall feel better when you're exercising. That's one of the things as you get older, like it just feels kind of harder to exercise. And if it feels easier to exercise, you're like obviously it's going to make you want to exercise more. You're going to build more muscle mass. And if at the same time this creatine can improve your processing speed and memory, then like it's a slam dunk supplement.
Yeah. In fact, I use creatine a lot in individuals that come to my practice with methylation issues. And when I bring up creatine and its ability to like indirectly impact methylation, people are always like, I've not been told this. And it's one of my most favorite things to give to people that have MTHFR issues and like they're supplementing with the folate and the glycine and the choline. I'm like, try some creatine, and they do notice a difference. So yeah, I think it's a really powerful supplement. I put it off for a really, really long time and just was like, creatine. But it really does make a really big impact. And the people around me that take it, I have noticed a shift. So that's exciting. Is there anything that you feel like we missed in the topic of essential amino acids or creatine that you want to make sure that we cover today?
I don't know. The thing that always comes up for me after these conversations, and we've done like such deep dive on things, is just to want to encourage people to like not feel the pressure to understand it all, to be perfect, to do like the perfect right thing, and just keep taking like the next step. And it's the dynamic I brought up earlier, where it's like there's definitely lack of understanding around essential amino acids and protein, but there's also a lot of people making it feel like it's this like if you don't do the perfect thing, then you're not doing anything right, and like that is just not true. So it's like any step in the right direction, like anything you got out of this conversation today that makes you feel slightly clearer, slightly more motivated to like up your essential amino acid intake, to maybe try creatine, to train in this way, like just take that as like a win. And yeah, it's just awesome you're on the path. That'd be like just want to celebrate anyone who got this far in a nerdy conversation about amino acids and creatine. Like just feel stoked about being on the path and doing the next best thing.
Yes. And I talk about this all the time on the show and on my Instagram. It's like commit to something for a couple of months and just stay in your lane and have confidence in this decision that you've made and kind of see how it impacts you. Because I think we listen to shows and we get so excited and we're like, I'm going to try this thing. And then we try it for a week and we're like, I see no changes. And then you move on to the next. And it's helpful to understand what you're doing, to have confidence then in the decision that you made around taking essential amino acids, and then commit for like 3 months and like fully commit and don't get distracted. And you can really see positive change. But I agree with you. I think we can get decision fatigue. We can get overwhelmed by other information, and then we just don't make any change. And that doesn't help at all. So I'm glad that you ended with that.
I'm so on that page too about consistency. It's like, it's through the things we discussed today, like they're everyday things. So it's, again, yeah, you're not going to take essential amino acids once and like everything's going to change. It's about really, again, I think 90 days is that's an awesome way to actually like build a habit and to actually see the benefits of that habit and how it plays out. And you'll see it. If you commit to it every day for 90 days, you will experience it.
Yes. And when you take it for the first time, okay, if you've never taken essential amino acids and you end up going to getkion.com/keto for 20% off, and you drink your first drink and then you swear my name because it's so bitter and disgusting, I promise you the second time it won't taste like that. Literally the whole time we were talking, I had a big water bottle beside me and I was drinking it, and I didn't have a gross look on my face because it doesn't taste like that the second time. I promise you, it does not taste like that the second time. Thanks again for coming on the show, Angelo. This was a blast.
Thank you, Leanne. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. It's always a blast hanging out with you. If you have new ideas for shows or questions, you can hit me up on Instagram at Leanne Vogel or on Facebook, Healthful Pursuit. I check my messages daily. In fact, there was an issue for like 5 years where I didn't know I was getting Facebook messages for Healthful Pursuit. I have since figured this out. I check them daily. So that is the best way to contact me. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you back here next week. I am just about to record an episode on redox and how to have more energy and faster healing by focusing on your minerals and what that means. So I'll see you back here next week for that episode. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Healthful Pursuit podcast. Join us next Tuesday for another episode of the show. If you're looking for free resources, there are a couple of places you can go. The first to my blog, healthfulpursuit.com, where you're going to find loads of recipes. The second is a free parasite protocol that I've put together for you that outlines symptoms, testing, and resources to determine whether or not you have a parasite, plus a full protocol to follow to eradicate them from your life if you need to. That's available at healthfulpursuit.com/parasites. And last but certainly not least, a full list of blood work markers to ask your doctor for so that you can get a full picture of your health. You can grab that free resource by going to healthfulpursuit.com/labs. The Healthful Pursuit podcast, including show notes and links, provides information in respect to healthy living, recipes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Healthful Pursuit podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without any representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified health practitioner with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.